Hey, welcome back. I hope you had a good break and are recharged and ready to go. Welcome back to our Cyber Ranges session. This is the Cyber Ranges track of the SANS Pen Test HackFest and Cyber Ranges Summit. We have a really interesting panel coming up now based on the PCTE. This is Ed Scotus here. I am the track lead for this track, but I am not your moderator for this panel. The moderator for this panel is Jim Yacone. He is the Chief of Mission at SANS Institute. Those of you who've been following along all day saw him on the earlier panel where he was representing some really fascinating ideas of how we can learn from kinetic ranges and apply those lessons learned to cyber ranges. Let me go ahead and turn this over to Jim Yacone. Jim, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Ed. I really appreciate it. Hey, we are really excited. When Ed and I were putting together the ranges agenda, it was readily apparent that we needed to invite the team, the leadership team, of those that are attempting to build one of the biggest mother of all ranges. Ranges, it's a range of ranges. And we invited them. We reached out to Colonel Trout, Colonel Monaghan, and Amit, and graciously invited him. Actually, I probably dogged them until they just submitted and said, yes, we'll come on your panel. But we are so pleased to have these experts here. I can tell you they're incredibly busy. We worked in a couple prep sessions at night after hours, but truly amazing group, and we're so pleased to have them. A couple personal agenda or personal items that we need to highlight here. Again, the panel members, these will be their personal opinions. They're not speaking on behalf of their organizations. Just keep that in mind. As far as asking questions, please stay away from questions related to acquisition. They are in a key phase of the Persistent Cyber Training Environment award process and won't be able to answer them, so please don't ask questions related to acquisition. And also a reminder, I think our three panelists can stay with us after. We will have an open Slack channel. It's entitled Best Practice for PCTE. And we will all hang out there for at least 30 minutes after this panel. Let me go ahead and introduce our esteemed panel. So Colonel Tanya Trout is a communications officer with the TXARNG National Guard with over 18 years of IT consulting experience in the private industry. Currently, she's assigned to the U.S. Cyber Command as the PCTE Director and the Acting Director of the Joint Cyber Training Environment. She served in numerous operational assignments, providing tactical and strategic communication support to a number of operational divisions within the Army. Additionally, she was assigned to the Pentagon as a political military officer for the Joint Staff. Her deployments include Bosnia, Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. She will assume command of the 71st Theater Information Operations Group in August of this year. Lieutenant Colonel Monaghan. Tom took command as the product manager for the Cyber Resiliency and Training at the United States Army Program Executive Office for Simulation, Training, and Instrumentation, also known as PEO STRI. And he did so on 13 July 2018. He previously served as a Training with Industry Fellow for the Ford Motor Company in the Global Quality Office at the Ford Six Sigma Center. Lieutenant Colonel Monaghan has 3 combat deployments in Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, as well as several other deployments to Afghanistan, the Middle East, supporting Operation Enduring Freedom. He holds a BS in education from the Citadel and an MBA from the Naval Postgraduate School. Lieutenant Colonel Monaghan is from Yacone, New Jersey, and is married with 3 children. And our final panelist is Mr. Amit. Kapadia. He is the Chief Engineer for the Cyber Resiliency and Training at the PEO STRI. He provides technical direction and oversight for Persistent Cyber Training Environment, the Army Acquisition Blue Team, and the National Cyber Range Complex. He received a bachelor's and a master's of science in electrical engineering from the University of Central Florida. Again, welcome panelists. Thank you very much for taking time with us. So let's jump right into some of the questions. Tom, can you help us frame what, an all-encompassing, what is the Persistent Cyber Training Environment, Is it a range? Is it a conglomerate of ranges? And what exactly, is the PCTE?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Hey, first off, I want to say thanks to SANS Institute, Jim, Ed, and your team for setting this up and for inviting us. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank U.S. Cybercom, Rear Admiral Mulger, Colonel Trout, for all the teamwork and coming up and supporting us on this panel. So kind of getting to your question, it's kind of funny. You said the range of ranges, right? And so from an Army soldier perspective, right? So what a range is to me, a range has a singular task, purpose, and end state, right? It's stood up, it's used, it's taken down. And in the genesis of PCT, right? The P in PCT is persistent. So the DoD, not just the Army now, the DoD needed a persistent training environment that was readily available at a moment's notice. And I really do mean a moment's notice. That's part of our requirement for the Joint Cyber Mission Force to dial into, I'm using my older terms, right, and conduct training. Some of our requirements for the persistent cyber training environment, responsiveness is one of them, right? Responsiveness is titled as anywhere between 30 minutes and 180 days. A CMF team, Cyber Mission Force team, person, group, unit, based on their need to be able to access the persistent cyber training environment. And the big paradigm shift from the DoD's perspective was they didn't have the time to order some type of high fidelity range and then have that delivered, I would say, a month, 6 months to a year later to conduct the training event. A threat would come up, they would see the need, and they would stand up an environment or access an environment that was persistently available for them to train on. And then I know Colonel Trout has something to add to that too, and I kind of offer her some time to work
Absolutely.
on.
Ma'am.
Yeah, so I guess where does this persistent cyber training environment differ from another range is, it's for the Cyber Mission Force, for Cyber Command, obviously a combatant command that just stood up and FOC'd officially and got all our Cyber Mission Forces IOC'd in 2018, but really it's enable us to train as we fight. And while in other organizations, when you go to an NTC or JRTC and you get in your tanks and your things like that, obviously in cyber, it's a little different. So we needed to have that virtualized, persistent environment we can train at a moment's notice. We have to be tightly integrated with our operational tools and capabilities. We are one of the 6 components of the Joint Cyber Warfighter Architecture, which is the significant, components and idea of Cybercom to be able to have all these operational tools and capabilities, which allow us to do everything from individual training to force level training to mission rehearsal in the persistent cyber training environment, while also being able to assess mission readiness. So I think that's where the differentiation really comes, and something that we've needed for a long time across the force.
Outstanding. Thank you, Tanya. Hey, Amit, why the term persistent? I know Tom talked about this a little bit, but talk to us about continuous learning, and then from a technology standpoint as the engineer, the persistent factor. How difficult is it?
Yeah, so I think the persistent thing term within PCT is a broader thing for me, right? So obviously cyber ranges have been around for forever and a day, right? Folks can come into a generalized set of virtualized compute, network, and storage. They can create their own sort of key terrain. They can come in and sort of train in it. What PCTE is sort of doing that's a little bit different, right, is we're providing this as a self-service capability and turning it over to the Cyber Mission Force. So we do recognize, that currently right now, and specifically within DoD, CMF training is that, there's a lot of middlemen that sort of come in there to sort of do that, right, whether it's cyber training or test ranges. What we want to do is sort of hand the keys over to the Cyber Mission Force and have them own their own destiny. So whether that's to plan, to schedule, to reuse content, or if nothing is there, they can make their own on their own, almost like how you would see sort of a platform, a learning platform like you would see with Netflix or YouTube or some of the other things that are out there. That's really where the game-changing aspect comes in. Now, we do recognize what that power becomes, this is a complicated living to sort of cyber training environment that you sort of create and spin out on demand. What we want to do is sort of lower that barrier such that, that operator, that training manager, that content author can come in and sort of do it on his own, right? And that's always going to be sort of like the key mantra that's coming off from the program office, to sort of empower that end user to sort of do it on his own and not require like an IT staff of like 30, 40 people, and they split it up once and you sort of lose it on that end. So that's what the persistence at least means to me on the program shop.
Excellent. Tanya, I have a question really for the larger audience. Now, I realize this is some military government on here, but many from industry. Help us understand the cyber mission force and kind of describe that to us. How many DoD branches does that serve? What are the teams? How are they constituted? Obviously nothing classified, but we'd like to, if you could lay out the framework of the people that you are responsible for training in PCTE.
Yeah, so the Cyber Mission Force is really comprised of three kind of components: the Cyber Protection Force, the Cyber National Mission Force, and the Cyber Combat Mission Force. That's about 154 teams across all three components, so active, guard, and reserves, and roughly about 6,000 cyber warriors. So this force has everybody: soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and civilians involved in it. We really looked at the first IT box and where we should take PCT. A decision was made to focus in the Cyber Mission Force because that was where the need was, where we needed that persistency to allow them to train and do things. So, I would say that that's what it is. That's what it's comprised of. We will grow as Cybercom grows. We see the need constantly. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world, whether it's COVID-19 pandemic or whether it's just election security, the Cyber Mission Force is an important element to continue to be able to secure the nation's infrastructure and defense.
Sure. So, ma'am, does that encompass, I would assume, teams that are even overseas that are deployed abroad?
Yeah, so the Cyber Mission Force is kind of comprised to support different elements. We have teams that support just U.S. Cybercom's priorities and operational requirements. Then we have teams assigned to combatant commands that is for the force and the combatant commands to utilize as they need, whether an exercise or operational support. And then we actually even have some assigned to the service level where they can be used and leveraged. So it is worldwide, and there are Cyber Mission Force elements all over the world.
Amit, from a technology perspective, that's got to be difficult, but I assume this is a cloud-based training environment. How does that work? How challenging was that from an engineering perspective?
Yeah, I would say that is challenging, right? Because, this is a platform, going back to the persistent question, that needs to be up 24/7 to support individual, group, collective training, force level training, which we're heading into as well. And then on top of that, some of the mission rehearsal type of activities. So how we do that in a distributed and secure manner that's relevant and stays up to the latest threats and targets and sort of operational TTPs, it's sort of demanding from a program office shop to be able to make sure we provide a seamless capability that is up and available and secure 24/7.
Excellent. Tom, how do you establish and define both the content and the infrastructure requirements? That's got to be a huge task for your shop. Can you walk us through some of that?
Yeah, so really kind of a detailed type question and answer. So I'll couch it kind of like this. So like everything in the Army, we kind of have a process for that. So there's multiple agencies that are kind of teaming together to provide that capability. So what the Army has is a capability manager. And that capability manager, they have a doctrinal name, but I'll just leave it like that, right? Goes out to the user community, the user force, and kind of collects their needs, wants, and desires, and puts them into a consolidated document that's then approved through the DoD, through the Pentagon, and that's the requirement, right? So with PCTE, though, it's kind of interesting, right? The need kind of starts with one of our main users who happens to be on the panel with us, Colonel Trout, Cybercom J7 for training. So between the Army's capability manager and the Cybercom J7 Colonel Trout in her office, they collect all that user feedback, the needs, wants, desires, right? And they feed that to us through requirements documents, through capability needs statements, through just really like, hey, this is the type of capability and content we need. So we take that, and that helps provide the kind of the build structure or the to build order that we actually transmit to industries, just like we're doing now through forums, through panels, through solicitations, through actual contracts. and they start building the platform itself. The other thing that we did with PCTE is we did this whole paradigm shift. Inside of PCTE, and Amit can get kind of the technical piece of this, we embedded the platform to have specific tools. So the user community didn't have to order that type of training and then wait 6 months to 5 years to have it delivered. They could go into the PCTE platform, use the tools that are provided through all the different suites and administrative controls, event design controls, analytics controls and tools, and build the specific content that they needed for their training mission. The other thing, we really attack this from multiple avenues. We do these things that we'll talk about a little bit later, but cyber innovation challenges. So if it was a major complex capability that either the cyber mission force operators couldn't or didn't have the time to build themselves, we've done a series of cyber innovation challenges where we take those requirements that the user community has developed for us, Colonel Trout and her team, and we spin them out in these multiple mini source selection types things to industry. We've done 4 of those already, and we're about to drop another one, Cyber Innovation Challenge 4, for Op4 type features and whatnot. So we've attacked it from multiple different ways. Again, the beauty of PCTE is the capability to build that content resides in the operator's hands. They can actually get in there and get on keyboard and actually develop what they need to meet the mission that they have.
So, Tom, we talked a little bit about kind of the blue and the white side of how things, how the requirements come in. How about the red side? How do you accurately model the latest threats and indicators of compromise and kind of pull them into the infrastructure?
So yeah, it's kind of the same model. So, and again, 2 points I touched on. One, the next cyber innovation challenge, we're going after some automated assessment, some threat-based capability, but the actual cyber mission force operator can go into the system and create or update or model the persistent threat or the new emerging threat. And we did that for a specific reason, because the current acquisition process does not keep up with the current cyber missions threat that they're facing. The speed of the enemy does not equal the speed of the acquiring process. So we totally shifted the paradigm and tried another route. And Amit's been leading the charge on that with a lot of the technical capabilities.
Yeah, and so what we've been learning, right, and one thing that we sort of strive ourselves on is the whole mantra of sort of DevOps, right? So unless we have our ear close to the ground of what the cyber mission force is actually doing, what sort of content that they want to put into the platform, what sort of target sets, things like embedded hypervisors or ICS SCADA devices. We try to get the pulse of that and make sure that the infrastructure capabilities and platform can sort of either integrate them or be some level of interoperable with them. And we've shown that through the course of various different events. And I think over time, as the Internet of Things and as 4G, 5G, all these other sort of sort of key terrains sort of come into the fold, we need to be on pace with that and keeping relevancy at the speed of cyber.
Yeah, great. Colonel Trout, anything further on that?
No, I think it's constant collaboration. I mean, we look all the time at the difference between the automated Op4 and those capabilities and TTPs and the actual, people that we hire to be the red teams and the Op4 and how to find ways to, give them tools and accessibility to be able to do that and operate as that Op4 adversary with those TTPs. But it's constantly a challenge. And as you guys all know, it constantly changes. So for us, really, I think it's about creating features and functionality to enable it, because at some point, like the speed of cyber, we can't keep up, right? So we have to give it where we can change very agilely based on what's going on in the world. Really
helpful. So Amit, take off your military hat right now and put on your private sector hat. I guess I'm asking all the panelists, if you were to extrapolate and say, some of the best practices that you've experienced and try to project some of those best practices over to industry who are attempting to build integrated ranges themselves. What would you say?
Yeah, so I think for me, just leveraging the broad suite of industry vendors that we have working on sort of PCT, we know that it's not one size fits all. We know that it's not that one vendor that's going to give it, at least from the sake of PCT, right? So definitely what we've tried to, so as these vendors come in, right, leave your ego at the door, really. The other thing is we realize that there's more than this slice of pie to go around, right? That, you know, as you come into this environment as a vendor, focus on your capability, but also focus on, you know, how you make your capability work with others, right? And we, the government, and we, the program office, we will help facilitate that integration, because there's enough of that reward to go around. It's not just a one size fits all. The other thing is that what we've learned is that, you know, that typically how DoD acquisition works is that you typically give that requirement off and say, hey, that'll go out and sort of build PCTE. We, the program office, we're in that environment, which we call our integration factory, every day of every day. So there's not a Slack call, there's not a Jira ticket, there's not an event that we don't say, okay, how can we sort of learn from this and sort of improve it, so that it's not like we have this very grandiose roadmap in IMS that sort of says on such and such date you're going to get this capability. We constantly seek that feedback and sort of do that. And I'll be honest with you that some industry partners are a little bit taken aback by that, right? Especially some of the big DoD players that we have. And we want to shake that mentality that government can go at that speed of cyber. And we want to do these agile sprints that we've sort of worked through to say every month we want to drop capability that's improving our posture, right? And not do this big design up front, right? So knowing that industry partners sort of come into this environment and know that they can plug and play with others, I think that's really the big difference that we're trying to embed within our philosophy.
Thank you. Tanya, I'm sorry, Tom, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, just to sum it up, it's communication. That's something that I talk.
We are having an audio issue, Tom. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, much better.
So the interesting thing is it boils down to just constant communication. I mean, Amit and I talk to our peers in other programs. They're like, well, what do you mean you talk to your vendors on a daily basis? And we laugh. What do you mean daily? Sometimes it's hourly. Sometimes it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's 9 o'clock at night. It's just constant communication. We really do have what you would call an integrated product team on steroids between the program office, the user community, the capability manager, and the existing vendors that we have on contract. We are in this constant DevOps cycle of make it better, make it faster, make it more efficient, deliver at the point of need for the soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine.
And I think overall, our goal is really moving from chaos to organized chaos. And I think we'll always be in that state to make sure we're sort of relevant.
Yeah, and that feedback loop kind of from the field requirements, I mean, I assume that is just constantly churning.
Oh, yeah.
Ma'am, does that fall to you more at the J7 shop at US Cyber Command?
So I really think that really falls in probably where we're leading next into the Joint Cyber Training Enterprise, where I'm the acting director right now. So, as we stood up and developed the persistent cyber training environment, we realized we need that non-material side. Not that we want to have, like Amit says, 50 people helping to build a range, but we know we do need some sort of centered, kind of gravity that helps with all that, kind of determines what's the content we're trying to get after, where are the priorities, all the things from the user feedback loop. So JCT, which, IOC'd in February 2020, we have constant user feedback in addition to all that goes on with every exercise or prototype event that PCT program office used to do before. We have user forums every quarter. We have monthly stakeholder meetings. At every event, we collect and get feedback. We actually have a building called the Castle that one of our vendors has helped us, provided for us, where we can have that collaboration all the time, where Cyber Mission Force can come and, get onto their kit, bring their physical kit in, or have some training facilitated there in person, or just collaborate because we want to talk about how we get after, getting good content and building the next capability box that we need. So I say, just like I probably talk to the program office daily, we talk to someone in the Cyber Mission Force at some level, whether it's a tactical user, because we also have range resource meetings that we invite all the program office and our capabilities managers to, and we are closely synced daily, multiple times a day, weekly, and I think that's the key. And then there's probably still people who'd say it's not enough, but that is constantly the feedback we try to take in.
One more question here, because we were talking about industry, or Amit was earlier. With industry partners, how do you strike that balance, kind of protecting, government's intellectual property, but being in an open collaboration forum with industry. And I'll have the others help you out, but if you could speak to it maybe from a red, blue, white, and even in gray team considerations.
Yeah, so I'll probably pass off the IP part to Amit and Tom, but I'll take it from the collaboration. I mean, we know it's essential, right? We can't continue to operate and to do the job we need to do without industry partners who are constantly advancing and thinking about the next thing and the next tool and feature and functionality. One of the things that we're working on developing for Cybercom is a joint content development strategy that'll be incorporated in how we employ things and what we get after in PCTE. And there we're leveraging the server cyber components from their standpoint of where they want to go, but also industry partners. And so, this adversary is always evolving, always adapting. And so I feel like it's a game changer for us that we need these industry partners. I would say that, General Nakasone and Cybercom would say that we have to constantly innovate in the space because our adversaries get a vote every day, right? So it's essential. One of the things that we strive for is persistent innovation, just like persistent engagement and persistent cyber training environment. So I would say that, I see them as part of the team and an extension. And I think that's what also helps, that everyone is in it together and we want to achieve success together. So I will pass it off to Amit or Tom to talk about the IP protection part.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so from our end, from the technical point of view, I think the one core thing that's sort of different with our platform or our acquisition that's a little bit novel is that we're actually taking advantage of COTS capabilities. We, the program office, are not sort of developing our own capability here, right? So if you've been following any of the cyber innovation challenges, any of that other work that we have, the thrust of what is coming inside of our platform is through industry partners. And the thing that we're sort of doing there is that, if we need to make a deliberate path of integration to talk to one range capability that needs to talk to some sort of platform capability, we work through what that design is going to be, right? All through this agile process, such that we don't need to worry about some sort of big design up front that's going to take some serial number of time that takes 6 months. We want to do this in a more of a incremental fashion and sort of see how that works, right? There's plenty of sort of enterprise application integration patterns out there that we're leveraging, whether it's a container platform, a message bus, some of the open source technologies that our COTS vendors are using. So between those, as well as what we published out to industry that's available at the FOUO level, at least, is our platform development kit. So that's over a 250-page document that discusses our processes, our technical integration means, our technology stack, as well as our own CI/CD pipeline for capabilities to ultimately deliver these on demand to the U.S. Cyber Command and the Cyber Mission Force. So I think with that's how we're sort of forcing sort of that integration to come in and knowing that we, the program office, really don't care about what's inside your black box. We care about the outer APIs and how you're going to integrate and provide capabilities out.
Point, I heard you classify it as FOUO. I would assume you try to keep it at the lowest classification level to enable the majority of industry to participate. Is that a true statement?
Yes, absolutely. So there are other programs out there, right, that, obviously PCTE supports many different classification levels, but there's some programs, that they'll keep all their stuff on the high side. We work the opposite. We develop our capability, at the lowest possible level, and then we sort of bring it up. So obviously some of the discussions that need to go on at the top level is really more focused towards either some of the assessment capabilities or some of the content specific work, but the day-to-day development and integration and how we collaborate and stuff is all done at the unclassified level.
Tom, anything else on kind of red, blue, integration? Yeah, I should say.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. You hit on my school teacher background. I'll kind of go there for a second, right? So I highly recommend anybody listening to the panel go check out or go download the book Freedom Sports, because we've been asked the question many times, like, this is revolutionary. No one's ever done this before. Oh, it's been done before several times. A good case in point, prior to World War II, Bill Knudsen, the first Army procurement officer, which is now the Army Acquisition Executive, basically said, hey, we've got to ramp up the military industrial complex to meet the war effort, right? So I need you all, industry, to do it, right? So he pulled all the Detroit industry vendors and partners that he knew and said, hey, we've got to build a B-17 right now. Who can build a frame or body? Who can build a machine gun? Who can build an engine? And they just kind of were raising their hand, hey, I'll try it. I'll try it. So you had Ford building the hull. You had Chrysler building engines and machine guns. You had General Motors building landing gear, and they were all for one platform. And what he did there, the takeaway is he got everybody in the room together, and it was at the speed of trust and in commitment to the effort, and trust in both ways, trust between the vendors, trust to the military procurement office, trust with the actual user, and got the users involved. So this is what we need. So we protect the IP as we can, just like Amit said. We don't need to know what's inside the black box. We need the effect. We need to work with this. We need to interoperate with this. Here's the build to standard in the platform development kit. This is what we need you to provide. Your IP is protected, but be part of the bigger picture. We've got to win the fight, and that's kind of the big thing that we go after. And so far, it's been very successful. But it's trust and communication.
Sure, great. Hey Tom, just a little bit on the kind of the government, and I was in it for 33 years. Right, is kind of known for its bureaucratic acquisition process. What are like the 2 or 3 main things that you have done with PCTE to streamline that process?
Yeah, the government's known for its very bureaucratic and structured acquisition process, and I am a red-blooded American and an acquisition officer, right? So what I did is I looked at, when I say it was the team. We looked at what we like to call the ballistic loophole. So we know what the regulation says. We know what DoD authorities we have to tailor, streamline acquisition processes. And then we went after it, and we really tailored the hell out of this program. We looked at every process, we looked at every event, we looked at every document, and it wasn't that we just did it. We went up hard. We went up to the DAE before they changed that into the current 2 positions, and we asked for specific tailored authorities for us to spend specific amounts of money on rapid prototyping events, develop prototypes, deliver prototypes, and we got all the permissions necessary, and we did that all within a couple months, and then we just attacked it. We pulled in the cyber mission force early. A typical process, we would have split up developmental testing and operational testing. Well, we combined those together, and we've been doing a series of DT, OT, developmental and operational tests, combined with the cyber mission force and witnessing there. And to be completely honest, hey, that worked. No, it didn't. Okay, why didn't it work? And we decompose why that didn't work, and we attack it. And guess who's sitting right behind us? The industry vendor right there at the training event. And that's another thing. We did all this stuff at the training event. So we nested all these events and activities into single events. And we basically took what should take years and turned it into months and weeks. And it's not easy. It wasn't like, oh, that's easy. We sit back, cross our arms, and we just watch it all happen. No, like Colonel Trout said, we talk on the phone probably hourly. Probably when she picks up her phone, she's like, great, it's Tom Monaghan again. I don't want to talk to him, but hi, how you doing? Right? So, and that's what we do. And we're like, hey, I have this problem, or we have this issue, or this came up, or what do you think of that? And that's not in DoD 5000. Communication, it says do it, but you have to actively get after it. So again, we streamlined everything. Everything is a simplified acquisition management plan, a simplified test plan, a simplified test strategy. And we get the authorities needed. We go to the right authority to get that signed off on. We brief them physically. I fly up to DC probably before COVID every other week to in-person brief here. This is what we need, sir. Here's what we can do. Here's a demonstration of the capability. And I call it adaptive program management. And it's very it's worked very well so far.
Great, thank you, Amit. So with any large undertaking, there's always kerfuffles or challenges. So what's been some of the larger technological challenges? And then kind of second half of the question, what did you learn from it, and kind of what have you put back into it?
Yeah, so I think some of the challenge that we obviously have, and I sort of stated a little bit up front, and the word I like to probably gravitate toward is, how do I make this day in and day out a more self-service capability, right? So the more users I jam into the system, the more training content that I sort of put into there. How do I make this more and more of an intuitive system that they can sort of go through the whole sort of training pipeline that they have, right? So not only are we seeing that, but now that we've push this capability out there because we want to get something out fast, as opposed to, as Colonel Monaghan saying, wait till the end of the 5-year sort of cycle that a typical IT or a typical DoD program has out there. Is that we're just understanding what that feedback is and sort of learning. So challenges in terms of like, okay, well, as you develop more and more of this capability, how do you make sure your infrastructure can sort of handle it? How do you know you have the right license management capability? How do you have the sort of the right resource contention that, oh, well, okay, if this unit wants to get sort of this amount of compute, network, and storage, how do you balance it with another large event sort of going in and whatnot? And we saw that within COVID, right? We saw almost 90% of our single node being used, and we've surged that to putting in additional capability. So it's always that closing that loop as fast as we can. So things that will make this platform more and more readily used so they can do it on their own, as opposed to sort of calling sort of like a large IT staff. So we're hearing a lot for, okay, I want to be able to have like a more of a self-service automation capability. So we're putting in Puppet and sort of Ansible like capabilities. We're putting in a means to better collaborate with the white cell, a better master calendar, a better scheduling capability, as well as a lot of this thing is that, sort of a license thing, right? So all the industry partners out there have their own unique license capability, right? So all those other things that we need to do so that they can track and use the platform capabilities are some of the things that we're trying to knock out over time.
Terrific. So we're closing in on we have about 4 minutes left. I'm going to go to Tanya next, and then we'll come back to both Amit and Tom for kind of cleanup. Tanya, I know Tom had talked about the Cyber Innovation Challenge process. Can you just give the audience kind of an overview? What is it, and how are you using it to kind of improve the process to build PCTE?
Yeah, so I'm going to take it from Cybercom's perspective, or our involvement, and then obviously Amit and Tom can elaborate. But, for us really as the customer user, I think that's where it's so significant, our involvement. I mean, they allow us to be there to participate, to evaluate, and to have a voice, right? So as soon as those kicked off and the Cyber Mission Force realized we have a voice, we get a vote, we're a very influential part of this, which is not normal acquisition. They always wanted to attend. They always want to see what can come next. And I think for us, what we learned over time, because we're about to go through like CIC number 4, is how to refine the requirements so that when what we need. So when we give that to Amit and Tom, that they can give that ahead of those innovation challenges. So vendors come with delivered capability or prototypes that can meet the needs. And then we help assess best of breed, right? That would be used or leveraged for prototyping into environment. I think that is unique, and I've not seen that. I've been in the Army a long time, and normally they just give me the SINGAR's radio or CPOF or whatever I'm getting, and they tell you how to train and use it, versus allowing you to be integrally involved in the actual development of the environment. But I'll pass off to Tom and Amit to talk a little bit more of how the process works.
Yeah, so as Colonel Trout said, one of the things that we did from the very beginning, we went through, we're on our 5th, almost 6th delivery of PCTE. The Joint Cyber Mission Force has been embedded with the program office since day one. As a matter of fact, it's kind of unique. They are part of the selection process for capability. So we sit down, there's a big board, there's a demonstration, and it's the program office, and Amit and I are sitting there. I'm looking at it from a programmatic perspective, affordability perspective. He's looking at it from a technical perspective. But we have representation from the Joint Cyber Mission Force and from Cybercom, Army Cyber, NAV Cyber, all the services that are providing input on what we're looking at and if it actually meets the need of the Cyber Mission Force. And it really is a huge team, and they've been with it through all 5 deliveries of the platform so far.
And so typically when we do sort of contracts and solicitation, so the government is typically used to like these big, long, drawn out shall statements and decomposing them down, and industry probably just sort of just like shakes their head at like, what are they even asking for, right? And it makes no sense. So what we sort of gravitate towards these cyber innovation challenges, and again, it's another acquisition streamlining sort of mechanism that DoD has sort of empowered the acquisition workforce for, is I can go out and say, hey, I want a generic sort of like traffic capabilities. It'd be good if you could sort of look at, network traffic profiles or host profiles or, sort of a high fidelity synthetic internet environment. And industry, tell me what you think you have, right? And as Colonel Trout mentioned, we actually get the operators, the SMEs are going to be using those capabilities in there. They not only select the capabilities, but as we throw that capability within our integration factory, they're seeing that churn coming out on a month-to-month basis. Now, one other thing that we've done that traditionally that industry may not have been used to with some of these big FAR-based contracts is that, you award these things and people think you're sort of stuck with vendors and you sort of deal with them through the rest of the pop. And that's not, I'm trying to use that as a stick to sort of like hammer down on industry or anything, but we've gone in and say that we're going to award these contracts and you get an agile backlog. You burn down what that is, right? And I think industry has sort of embraced that. The other thing that we've done is, we say that there's sprint-based deliverables that we have. So every month you have to show your wares to us. And, our progress payments are based on a sprint-by-sprint basis, right? So at any point, there's exit off-ramps that are there. And we have taken them before in the past. So I think it's been a best of both worlds that, we don't get caught up in this big, FAR-based contracting world where you got to define everything down and a KO has to step in and whatnot, that we're actually moving out fast and industry likes it.
So we are at our time, but I have two quick questions that came in. And so Tom, maybe you can answer this one very short, but from one of our members, is PCT or are teams using the PCTE, and can they connect their deployable kits into the environment to train as they fight?
So I can answer that. Yes, Cyber Mission Force is using PCTE. We are actually getting ready to do Cyber Flag 20 TAC 2 in PCTE for the first time at a geographically dispersed event and based on COVID-19. And in addition, yes, we both have virtualized the kits in the environment that right now we're using a generic kit that we virtualized, but before that we have virtualized teams' individual kits or physically attach them to the environment to be able to use. So that has been done tried and true. We've also tested hardware in the loop and other things. So the environment is delivering and being able to allow the Cyber Mission Force to do training events.
Great. Hey, panelists, I really want to thank you guys. I know how busy you are. A really informative discussion. And again, we will hang out in the Slack channel, best practice for PCTE, for the next 30 minutes to ask some questions. Ed, I want to turn it over to you at this point.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Jim. What a great panel. PCTE folks, thanks. For everybody who has additional questions or would like to engage in a discussion with those panelists, you can go over to the Slack channel into hallway-panel-best practices for a PCTE. Thank you, folks.